Podróże uczą. Tak brzmi stara jak świat maksyma. Dodałbym jeszcze, że mogą inspirować. Te bliskie, dosłownie za miedzę, czy te dalekie, w które wybrać się musimy na przykład samolotem. Ważnym warunkiem uczenia się czy inspirowania są jeszcze, moim zdaniem, otwartość i pokora wobec odmiennego punktu widzenia, nowych idei, obcych nam tradycji czy kultury. Kilka lat temu odkryłem w internecie niezwykle inspirującego twórcę oraz jego genialne dzieła. Piet Hein Eek'a, bo o nim mowa, mieszka i tworzy w Eindhoven. Jest jednym z pionierów upcyklingu. Pod swoim nazwiskiem stworzył niepowtarzalną, designerską markę premium. W zakupionych budynkach przy ulicy Halvemanstraat nr 30 otworzył ogromną pracownię, dwupoziomowy sklep z własnymi produktami, restaurację, a nawet hotel. Pomyślałem o tym, że byłoby niezwykłym przeżyciem móc to zobaczyć i poznać go osobiście. A ponieważ, jak wiecie, wyznaję zasadę, że marzenia się nie spełniają, tylko się je spełnia, napisałem list i po krótkim czasie otrzymałem odpowiedź z zaproszeniem na spotkanie oraz zgodą na wywiad. Tego samego dnia podekscytowany kupiłem bilety lotnicze dla Mariusza, Michała, czyli mojego syna, i dla siebie. Zarezerwowałem nam noclegi i dopiero wówczas zdałem sobie sprawę z tego, że mój angielski oraz doświadczenie są dalece niewystarczające, aby przeprowadzać wywiad. Ale czyż takie drobiazgi mogą przeszkodzić w przeżyciu świetnej przygody? Świat jest przecież pełen życzliwych ludzi. Come on! O ile mi wiadomo, w polskim internecie, a i na polskim YouTubie nie można znaleźć zbyt wielu informacji na temat Piet Hein Eek'a. Tym bardziej cieszę się, że zgodził się na rozmowę z nami i na to, żeby pokazać nam to niezwykłe miejsce. A rozmowę tę będzie tłumaczyła Asia, która odpowiedziała na moją akcję Pomóżcie w Eindhoven, którą ogłosiłem na Facebooku.
Goedemorgen.
Cześć Asia. Hej.
Cześć.
To co, wchodzimy?
Idziemy.
Piet, kiedy zaczynałeś studia na Akademii Designu w Eindhoven, to wykorzystanie materiału z odzysku nie było rzeczą oczywistą. Czy odczuwałeś wsparcie ze strony swoich prowadzących, wykładowców, czy twoi rówieśnicy interesowali się podobnymi technikami i stylem i czy czujesz się prekursorem w tym nurcie?
It's a difficult question, difficult answer. At least there are different answers to the same question. So when I started at the academy, I was very, how do you call it, blunt. I didn't know anything, so I was not aware about anything either. It was, for me, I knew what I wanted to do in the future, so I wanted to design and manufacture and sell furniture. And I was, either I wanted to study business economy or design, both with the same goal, trying to start a company. And now I'm very happy that it was design, because I was really bad at that. So it needed much more, how do you call it, education to get a good designer, to become a good designer, than to become a good economist. I was quite good at economy actually, but so there was a choice at that moment. So when I went to my study, I was one of the most practical students. And when I had to get my degree, so there was a sort of problem. My approach was pragmatic, and the approach of the school was much more conceptual and artistic. And until the end, this was the case, and I had a lot of quarrels about my degree. And actually, I always worked from starting with the material and so the possibilities around me. So the school provided workspace, and at a certain moment in the end of my education, I was at the lumberyard, I needed some wood for a cupboard of my sister to renovate it, antique cupboard. And then I thought, there's a lot of wood here. It's more beautiful than new wood, and it's cheap. At that time it was cheap, now it's expensive. And I thought I can use this, so it was a pragmatic approach. It's beautiful, a lot of it, cheap and possible to process in school. So the question in the beginning was why I did choose for the material and if this gave problems, but my approach gave problems. And I think if any other designer would have been on this lumberyard, he wouldn't recognize the material, because for me the material is a starting point, and for most designers the idea is the starting point. So I think it fits to my pragmatic and the pragmatic approach to design, and also to the fact that I try to. So I realized that 30 years later. But now we're 30 years later. So I realized much later that for me those themes like material, machines which are available, craft which is available, are the main themes in the way I design. So it's a very pragmatic approach.
Czy twoi koledzy podzielali te zainteresowania i czy w związku z tym, że nie miałeś tego wsparcia w takim zakresie, czy czujesz się prekursorem nurtu?
That's difficult to say also. I was the first one to use this kind of material, and I also sort of had a fight about the practical approach. So I had quarrels about mainly the scrap wood cupboards, which became very successful, of course, or famous. Until they saw the result, actually. So when the teacher saw the result, he really liked it. So I quarreled for more than a year, and then he saw the cupboards and he said, yes, this is beautiful. So in the end, they say they give a lot about the concept and about the process, but in the end, the result they think is more important. So, and that's for me again something which I don't understand, because for me the process is more important. But well, it has been like sort of a quarrel, and I think it's because I do the things the way I do, and that was not exactly like they expected me to do. So.
Czy na przestrzeni tych 30 lat czujesz, że były jakieś punkty przełomowe, które coś zmieniły coś bardzo?
Yeah, sure. The major thing, and specifically when you look at me or others, of course, so like colleagues, I think is that we started, of course, designing, producing, and selling, which needs a bigger company than just designing, and it also makes that you do everything yourself. And when we bought this place in 2010, this was sort of because of this start, so I didn't know that it would end in this situation, that we sort of created a complete world in which we produce, design, produce and sell. But the building itself has been of extreme influence on almost everything we do.
Chcieliśmy spytać też o to, jak podchodzisz do każdego projektu, co dzieje się na początku, czy najważniejszy jest materiał, czy faktura, czy przeznaczenie przedmiotu na przykład.
No, yeah. I always get the comment from people who know me for a long time that I didn't change a lot, even from people who knew me from childhood. So my approach, I think, is so the pragmatic part, which I described in the beginning. But I think if you add the fact to it that I'm really interested in a complete process. So as a person, I don't like to just concentrate on just a part of it. And I think this is logic if you think about designing, that it's not only making a nice product, but it also has to do that it has to be strong, it has to be possible to transport it, it has to be affordable, it has to be good for the people who are your clients. So it has to fit on every little theme. It has to be correct, and then it might be successful. You don't even know for sure, but at least it makes a chance. So if you think about the idea that the designer should think about everything from the idea until the consumer, then it's not so strange that the designer also wants to have this under control, and that's what this is. And still, if you compare me as a designer to others, most of them are much more in the normal system of being a specialist in a bigger process. So I'm one of the few who sort of took the whole process in my own arms and tried to yeah. So in the end, that's different from the rest, and you might say not normal, but I think it's normal, and the rest is not normal, because a designer should think about the whole process.
Spytajmy w takim razie o klienta. Czy jesteś w stanie zdefiniować jakoś, kim są twoi klienci? Czy jest jakiś wspólny mianownik, który ich wszystkich łączy?
Yeah, my comment just in the last answer was about designers. So when you're a designer, you have to think about the people who will buy it. And for myself, I always thought that I want to create a market which responds to me. And that sort of worked out. When we started, people liked a lot the scrapwood cupboard, which was my first product which I presented for my exam. But people liked it, but didn't buy a lot. But like a few people bought it, and we always were lucky that there were enough products selling. So most of them don't sell, but enough to sell. And one of my biggest advices to other designers or creative people in general is, if you really want to do something specific, then you have to do it. So if you can't live from that, you have to do two things. One, to make money, and one which gives direction to you, the career which you want to achieve. And I think I was lucky that I had enough designs which were adopted by our clients, and because of internet it became worldwide, and because design is sort of sexy, we got a lot of attention by a lot of people and a lot of magazines. So right from the beginning we were able to reach for a big audience, and there was enough response to continue what I like to do.
To może na chwilę wróćmy do tych projektantów, bo jestem ciekaw, czy znasz jakichś projektantów z Polski, czy znasz jakieś polskie projekty, czy byłeś kiedykolwiek w tej części Europy i czy jest jakaś różnica między wschodnioeuropejskim i zachodnioeuropejskim sposobem projektowania?
I think I know Polish designers, but I'm not so. I think because I know a lot of designers, but I don't know exactly where they come from. So. But I'm actually not so focused on other designers, because I think it doesn't make sense to focus on colleagues, because they do the same. So I try to at least be inspired by by others than designers. And I don't need to be part of the scene, because I'm not working for industry or something. You know, we have our own world.
Miałeś też przygodę z projektowaniem, czy epizod, być może jest to dłuższa współpraca z dużą marką, z Ikeą. Czy inaczej projektuje się przedmioty, które mają być produkowane masowo, czy to coś zmieniło w Twoim podejściu do samego projektu?
Yeah, I loved the project with IKEA. And the reason why I actually started with it is that I know Karen Gustafsson there, and I met with her several times, and each time we said we have to work together. So in the end it's about a personal relationship which caused this collaboration, and it's not like two companies but two persons who just like each other and would love to collaborate. One of the major reasons to work for IKEA is that IKEA is providing the possibility to make a design for many others, for many people, so also for low budgets. So and I always try to make our stuff as affordable as possible, but because it's produced in Europe with all our costs which are existing, it's even if it's simple, it's still expensive. This has been like a goal or a theme in my work for the first 25 years. I think it is more or less after 25 years when I started the project with IKEA. And this was the first time I could make a design affordable for almost everybody. So that was the major reason. And then of course you want to make designs which fit in your ideas and also are not against your ethics, and that was much more easy than people would assume. So IKEA has very high standards if it's about labor and about material use and about everything which is bad for the world. They have to, because if they're not and people start complaining, they get of course a lot of problems in terms of brand. You know, if there's a negative story about laborers working for IKEA and who are bad cheated, it influences their complete sales. So they're very, very keen on all those ethical and environmental themes.
Spytam Cię w takim razie, czy te elementy, o których wspomniałeś przy okazji IKEA, czyli odpowiedzialność społeczna, czyli gospodarowanie zasobami, ekologia szeroko rozumiana, ma też znaczenie dla Ciebie na etapie projektu i w ogóle w Twojej działalności?
Yeah, that's the reason why most people ask this question to me is because of course of the recycling of old wood way before anybody thought about this. So this sort of creates an expectation for the answer. But the funny thing is that I always felt quite uncomfortable by the ecological approach of this choice and of my work. And I always wanted to be far away from green thinking if it goes about, or if it is about looking at the brand and what we do, because I think we just make a beautiful product and it's normal not to throw away, and it's also normal to reuse, so why make a fuss about that? But of course it sort of forced me to think about what's important for me. So so the question is what's important for the world, recycling or electrical cars or everything what we're focusing on in the world. But I always felt that it's for example, if you recycle, you first have to throw away. And if you make something really good, you don't throw it away, so you can't recycle. So for me, a lot of those themes have to do with keeping up consumption like we've always done. And the answer is changing this consumption, not trying to make it possible. So if you're in an electrical car for a bad reason, it's still a bad reason, so you shouldn't be in a car. So, and we're often in a car, electrical or anything else, for a lousy reason. So in my opinion, you can benefit or gain much more by thinking about changing your consumption, changing your habits. So I always felt uncomfortable without saying it's not good, but it's on the wrong level to approach the environmental problems if you say I buy an electrical car or I'm starting recycling, or so And then the real answer came to me because I had to think about it all the time, is that, and I was inspired by the holiday homes in France, where I bought a ruin, and I renovated this whole like construction. It was like a hole in the ground because it was a water mill, like imploded by the water. You know, all the time the water goes through, and at a certain moment it's in the river instead of on top of it. Small river, but it was gone completely. And then I renovated it, and it took 10 years. And in those 10 years, I slowly understood why the mill was there and how it was built, without machines, without, you know, only with horses, maybe mules. And of course it was their water mill because of the water, but they made a very small dike keeping a lot of water. So big valley, small dike, and it was built on the rocks of the hill. I found out later this is important because if you don't do that, the water goes underneath, which was the case. And it took me really years before I understood that the straight cutted hills along upriver, they were their stone yard. So they cut the stones from the hills, and the stones tumbled in the water, and they used the river as a transport to get the stones to the dike. So the wood came from the forest, the stones came from the stone yard, the iron wheels were from the forge, how do you call it, where they make steel, like 1 kilometer stream up. So the whole building and the whole early industrial building was built there with the possibilities nature provided. And then the first time we slept in the mill, where the miller also had slept, we found out that in winter the sun goes under and shines the last part of the day exactly on where he lived, in order to have like the most warmth from the sun in the winter when it's important. So I slowly understood that those people didn't have the possibilities we have, but did understand the world, what it provides as a possibility. And then I thought, actually, this is the way I design also. I try to use what's available around me, and not to have an idea and then start thinking about how to make it, how to sell it. So for me, the starting point is, what does the world provide? And use that, instead of I'm a genius designer and the world has to provide the things necessary to execute my ideas. So it's the other way around. For me, I'm not important, but the world is important as a starting point, and that means the people around you, the craft, the possibilities, the impossibilities, the wood, the material, the machines, everything which is available, I use. And this is also pragmatic, because it takes less energy. So in the end you can make something with less energy, less transport, less communication, less driving in a car, everything less cost. So it's a clever approach, but it's more like intuitive. So it's my intuition that this is the way I want to live. I do everything like that. So that's why people say you didn't change at all. Because I've always had the same kind of thinking and doing. I made this when I was 12 or 13. So at that time I didn't have any possibilities. And so I made homes from matches, from lucifers. And I cut it with a surgeon knife and wire and glue. I made a rocking chair and a cupboard. So there were no means, you know. There was matches and a surgeon knife at my child room. So I was making my furniture with the means available at that time. And later on I realized that I didn't change at all. And now I still make cupboards and chairs, but they are big to sit on, but not actually. This is exactly the same.
Słuchajcie, jestem zachwycony rozmową z Pietem, dlatego nie chcąc wycinać z niej ważnych fragmentów, postanowiliśmy, że przedstawimy Wam ją jednak w 2 filmach. Dlatego już dzisiaj zapraszam Was na kontynuację za tydzień, w której pokażemy Wam resztę rozmowy z Pietem, ale także te niezwykłe wnętrza, które stworzył. Do zobaczenia za tydzień.